Hello and welcome to everyone for today's InsideLocal webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. The topic of today's webinar, which are not two, not three, but four esteemed local search experts will be discussing, is advanced Google Plus optimization. And we really hope that they will be sharing many of their unique insights and tips and tactics around Google Plus local optimization with us today. The four panelists we have are Phil Rozek, Casey Meraz, Greg Gifford, and Susan Hallam. And I'm going to give them a little introduction so you know who you'll be listening to and whose wisdom you'll be benefiting from today. So firstly, we have Phil. Phil is a very well-known local search consultant. He's a relentless blogger on all things related to local search on his blog, localvisibilitysystem.com, as well as other blogs. He's a long-term contributor to the local search ranking factors study, and he's generally a great guy who I have had the pleasure of doing lots of previous webinars with. So Phil, great to have you back. Casey is the head of Denver-based marketing agency Ethical Consulting, or Ethical SEO. Casey's actually also a contributor to the local search ranking factor study, as is Greg, as is Susan. So I kind of use that by way of sort of setting out the stall for these guys' credentials and why we really should be listening to the insights that they have with us today. They do know what they're talking about. In Casey's practice, he works a lot with marketing, with legal firms, so a lot of kind of practitioner businesses, and we will be looking a bit at practitioner business today. So Casey can share some of his particular insights from that particular marketplace. Greg is the director of search and social at Auto Review. Auto Review is a kind of technology and marketing firm that helps sort of auto dealers and motor car dealers with their online marketing. So we know what his niche is. He's also an extensive blogger and also speaks at conferences such as State of Search, SMX, PubCon. So he really does know what he's talking about. And Susan is the head of Hallam Internet. They are a UK-based full-service marketing agency based in Nottingham in the UK. Susan brings with her a breadth of knowledge across a whole range of particular industries, and she's actually the first UK panelist you've had on this series. So we'll give a nice counterbalance or a kind of supplement to the US panelists. So to the four of you, thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. Really do appreciate it. But also a big thank you to all our attendees who have taken the time to sign up and to show up and to kind of give over an hour of their day today. We really do appreciate it. We also have some people working behind the scenes with us today. We have Linda Bouquet from the Local Search Forum, who are the kind of co-promoters and the co-sort of organizers of InsideLocal. Particular thanks, Linda, today for kind of helping to create the kind of topics that we'll be running through, kind of Google Plus Local optimization, particularly at an advanced level, is really her sort of strong suit. So she has been a guiding light in setting the agenda for today. We have Colin Nielsen from Impresio Marketing, who are a fantastic Toronto-based search marketing agency. Linda and Colin's role will be helping to handle the Q&A, the text Q&A throughout today, and also kind of feeding through links to various resources and websites that our panelists talk about. And last and most definitely least, there is me. I run BrightLocal. We have lots of our customers listening in today, so a big thanks to all of you for putting your faith in us and for joining us today. So again, thank you very much to everyone who's helped make today possible. I really do appreciate the time and the energy. This is the agenda that we have today. I'm going to leave on the screen for 30 seconds so you can scan your eye over it, so you know what kind of topics we'll be talking about and covering as we go through the course of the webinar. So I hope that gives you insights to the fantastic range of topics we'll be covering. A bit of sort of kind of admin for you. Q&A and chat. There's a question box where you can kind of pose questions, and Linda and Colin will provide answers and tips and help throughout the course of the webinar. There's also a chat box, so any kind of links and comments that anyone wants to share publicly can be posted in there, and I'm sure Linda and Colin will post various links in there as well, so they go out to everyone who's attended. And if we have time, we'll take some questions and raise them up to the panelists, but given that we've got four great panelists and a really busy sort of agenda today, I don't think we'll have enough time, but we'll see how we're doing at the end. And if you do want to tweet anything you like or you hear on InsideLocal, please use the InsideLocal hashtag. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available this Friday on the two links that you've got on the screen there. Don't worry about kind of noting them down, because we're going to follow up with an email on Friday as well, with a link to the recording, also a link to the slide deck we're running through now. The slide deck itself is actually available on slideshare.net right now, so you could go there and access it right away or immediately after this. But this means that you'll get all the details sent to you on Friday, so please don't worry about having to note everything down. You can always kind of follow up or recap at any point. Just sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy the excellent debate that our panelists will have. We are running 3 polls in the webinar. For those of you who've done it before, you'll understand why. The idea is that we've got, nearly 1,000 marketeers, SEOs, and SMBs, attending today. It's a great pool of kind of specialists in the industry. We want to understand how you see the issues we're discussing. We're going to get the expert's opinion, but what do you think? And it's a great opportunity for us to gather insights from a large pool of, kind of engaged marketeers and SMBs. And we will share the results of the polls with you at the end of the webinar as well. Okay, so the first question, and actually, Phil, I'm going to put this one to you first. How much impact do specific Google My Business, the old Places signals, have on local ranking as part of all the signals that affect local ranking? What's their degree of impact?
Sure, that's a great question, Miles. And first of all, thanks for having me back. I always look forward to these webinars. There are a couple of schools of thought on that, and I look forward to what everybody else has to say about this. But my thinking is that the Google Places the sort of Google Places specific factors are way more important than they should be. And I think we really, for a number of years, I believe that the only things that really matter on your Places page are the name of your business and the category fields. And just earlier this week, those were the two areas that Google sort of cracked down on when they updated their guidelines. I mean, first they said you can't add descriptors to your name anymore, meaning, an additional keyword, the city that you're operating in, whatever. Because as you'll recall, back in February, Google said, okay, you can basically add keywords to your business name. And I found that really moved for some clients, that really moved the needle. They would actually start ranking for those if you put in kind of a good descriptor and really used that business name field wisely. Same thing with categories, right? Categories have always been huge. If you're a dentist, you're also probably going to want to list yourself under the category doctor and maybe specific kind of dental sort of branches of dentistry that you practice. Google cracked down on categories too and said, now you can basically only have, one category, the one category that really describes what it is you do, rather than an overly broad category like doctor. So those are 2 areas where Google has really kind of clipped, I think, business owners' wings and said, that there's very little they can do, with their business name and with their categories. And I think I actually did a blog post on this the other day, where my theory is that this sort of goes hand in hand with Google's Pigeon update that we saw last July, where they put more emphasis on the website and kind of classic organic ranking factors like especially links. Because now they're saying essentially they're leveling the playing field again and saying that people can't use categories and the business name field on their Places page to their advantage, to the same way that they used to be able to. So I think overall, in a nutshell, we've seen a little bit of a shift in emphasis from Google Places ranking factors to kind of the organic ones.
Okay, Phil, that's great. Thank you. A very detailed insight to kick us off with. I'm going to come to Greg. Greg, how would you answer the same question?
Well, I think he said it great when he said that the factors are more important than they should be. And while Google's moving in the direction of trying to use more of the traditional web factors, at least with a lot of the automotive clients we work with, Places or GMB is still super powerful. And part of that is because, in that specific vertical, a lot of guys are pretty far behind the rest of the internet. So they're typically 4, 5, 6 years behind. They're just now starting to realize, hey, there's this thing called SEO. Maybe we should do it. Some of them still don't have websites, and there's all kinds of dealers that we can just kill it in the local area just by going in and setting up a GMB page that they never had before, and then optimizing it and verifying it and putting the right things on it and picking the right categories, and boom, all of a sudden they went from not ranking at all to ranking on page 1 in a month, and they're freaking out and they're thinking that we're SEO gods, and it's just that there's so many people in that vertical that just don't do it at all. So kind of like Phil said, I mean, it's still a part of the signal, but if you're in a vertical where a lot of people aren't paying attention to it, those signals can be super powerful and really jump you up in the rankings, and that's kind of unfortunate because it's not always a great signal that that's really a relevant result.
So it's kind of relative to the competitiveness and the the level of optimization within a an industry or within a location.
Definitely so, because I do a lot of work with stuff outside of automotive as well, and lawyers, they're all on top of that, and so it's not like I can go talk to a lawyer and say, hey, let's do some stuff with your places page and you'll kick some ass, but if I go talk to a car dealer, chances are 30-40% of the time they're not even going to have a page set up yet. So it really, I think, depends on the vertical.
That's interesting. It's interesting that there are still some relatively unsophisticated niches out there. You can imagine smaller towns might be less well versed and less on top of the kind of latest opportunities versus big cities. But to find sort of whole vertical sectors around that is interesting. Okay, I'm just going to kind of move on. In fact, we're going to do our first poll now. If I can actually get the screen to change. So we're going to run through these polls. Please do everyone take part. The more participation we get, the better the sample size and the better the insight. So the question is, do you believe that kind of Google My Business and Google Plus Local delivers, good return on the investment? So the time that you spend optimizing, for kind of Google Plus Local, do you think that delivers, properly, delivers well for you and for your customers? So you should have the poll on the screen now. If you could all vote, that would be great. Okay, so next question or next topic. Let's talk about these guideline updates. And Phil touched on them, and he's had an excellent introduction. So Google My Business, I think it was on Monday or maybe the weekend, but it certainly got kind of blogged about on Monday. Updated the guidelines around best practice and how to optimize or how to put content onto your Google My Business dashboard. Susan, I'm going to come to you next. The first question is about descriptors in a business name. Can you kind of elaborate on sort of Phil's initial description? What are descriptors, and why does the latest advice from Google contradict the old advice we had?
Well, I think it's probably easiest to start with what Google used to advise businesses, and that would be that you could add additional text to your company name to make it easier for people to understand where you're located or the kind of service that you provided. So essentially, you could add additional keywords to your company name, and indeed, Google would encourage businesses to add that word to their company name. However, in the latest guidelines, they've now specifically said, no, don't do that. This is no longer acceptable. It's going to be coming back purely just to your company name.
Okay, that's great. So that's obviously kind of created a lot of additional work and confusion and headache. Presumably people had been going around adding these descriptor modifiers to their names, and they've now got to go and remove them. Do they talk about any kind of penalties they'd get if you don't remove them?
Again, they're talking specifically to say that this is in terms of their quality guidelines, and Google's quite straightforward with regards to the quality guidelines, that this is not acceptable behavior. Likewise, I'm sure you're going to talk a little bit later about other changes that have taken place, but these are the kind of activities that could get you penalties.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you for that. So the kind of guidelines is not to use descriptors, and I guess if you've got a descriptor, to go in there and kind of yank it out. Let's talk about practitioner businesses. And Casey, you do a lot within the kind of legal sector. What were the kind of updates relating to kind of practitioner businesses that Google announced?
Sure. So they did a few updates in the guidelines here recently, and two of them that come to mind are the practitioner pages in multi-location practices should have their name only and not just the name of the practice. And then solo practitioners can only use the format of the practice and then practitioner. So
Casey, Casey, can you give us a kind of like a real world example of what those two situations are? So describe what this sort of business looks like.
Sure. So for like a solo practitioner, if you wanted your own listing, you would put the practice name, or in this case, let's say a law firm. The California law firm, and then it would be basically then the name of the practitioner itself. In that case, if it was a lawyer, it would be an attorney. Now, the attorney's name. Now, with that, I just want to make something very clear. Although they updated these guidelines, in my experience, trying to rank in these very competitive markets, we've had a lot of success actually not doing that and not, even, and, obviously trying to remove any of those pages that currently exist or things like that. So I'm not sure how on board I am with this right now, even though it is newly in the guidelines.
Okay, so you think that actually, I mean, do you plan to alter the approach that you're taking, or are you planning to carry on and see, kind of see what any potential fallout or change will bring?
Yeah, so we're testing it actively, but the concern, of course, is whenever you start adding different ones in here, you could create some duplicate issues. There's just a lot of problems that I foresee happening in the local ecosystem, and so that's why it's a little bit scary. And I'm not yet recommending it until I have a better real-world example of that.
And presumably, it's not just this doesn't just impact what you're doing within GMB, because you presumably gone and built citations using the same business name. So if Google's now advising you to do a different business name, that's got a knock-on effect downstream to all the the relevant citations.
Yeah, and that's what scares me, quite honestly. Just thinking about how messed up is the local ecosystem right now through data aggregators and all of these duplicate issues that we have. If people just start adding pages to just try and rank for more keywords or different, because I can see lawyers or doctors are trying to add, oh, let's add this to under a different category to rank for more and more and more, and that just is opening Pandora's box a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Greg, what's your take on the kind of the updates around naming of kind of naming conventions within Google My Business and the impact that's going to have on local search?
Yeah, I mean, the implications when it comes to all of the junk that's going to float out into the ecosystem is really bad. And something else that I've glommed onto, especially because I do so much work in auto, is one of the updates specifically said that if you have two brands at the same location, that you have to pick a single name. And there's a lot of situations for us where you might have, GMC, Chevy, Jeep, Buick all at one dealership, and now they have to pick a brand name, even though it might be one location, but it's separate brands, and each of those automotive brands want you to market it as that brand only, but Google's saying, no, you can't do that. You're one entity. You have to pick one name. And that could cause a lot of issues. And again, that could potentially lead to more junk pages out there because now they're going to put a page out for each brand name instead of having one aggregate. And then the whole thing with different departments having different categories. So, you have a car dealership that has the service department and the sales department. Does that mean now all of these car dealerships are going to go out and have multiple listings because they're going to have one listing for the sales department and another listing for service department instead of having one listing that has both categories? So it's a little bit unclear as far as here's the guidelines of what you should do, but they're not giving us any real world examples to say, okay, well, in these situations, here's what you should really do. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of junk out there and a lot of duplicate and extra listings.
So it's another whole round of confusion being kind of dished out by Google here. Phil, you kind of talked in the introduction. What's your kind of general takeaway about these changes? And do you think these changes are here to stay, or do you think Google might flip flop on some of these?
Yeah, I mean, I think these changes are more or less consistent with what we've seen over the years because Google has never been clear about exactly what to do with the practitioner listings if you're a dentist or a doctor or a real estate agent or a lawyer. There have always been these gray areas and sort of edge cases, kind of like what Greg was describing about different dealerships with different departments. It's always been unclear how to handle those. So at least for me, I'm not stressing out about it too much because whenever Google rolls out sort of a guideline update like this, some business owners get the memo and sort of read the tea leaves and try to understand, okay, what does Google want us to do? But most people don't even know that, either don't even know about the guidelines to begin with, or when there's a change, they don't know that there was a change, and so they kind of carry on as they did before. So, and Google doesn't seem to be penalized. Google seems pretty forgiving about enforcing a lot of their own rules. I think to the point that it's sort of the local results are kind of like the Wild West, and people can just get away with all kinds of things. So, I don't see Google creating too many headaches for too many business owners for not sticking to the latest guideline update because it's just so hard to to comply with and to kind of to keep updating the name of your business based on Google's whims.
Yeah,
especially with that flip-flop there of, 6 months ago, they're rolling out and saying, hey, you can add the descriptor to your business name. And then now at the end of the year, oh, guess what? Now you can't do that. And, if somebody's out there and they're a small business owner and they read the blog post earlier this year and they're like, hey, great, I can add something on there, and they don't catch a blog post or an update about this, is Google really going to go penalize them for doing something that Google was telling them to do 6 months ago? I mean, you got to assume that the guidelines are there as guidelines. Are not going to jump out and penalize you immediately because you're not following them. That's just my own.
Yeah, be very hypocritical. So overall advice is kind of sit tight, hang tight, don't make any kind of knee-jerk changes, and see what shakes out, over the sort of coming weeks and months. I think that's some pretty sage advice there from guys who've got lots of experience in seeing many Google changes over time. Let's move on to the next thing, which is categories, which is actually kind of linked into some of the changes in the guidelines, because there were some changes to the categories. Phil, why don't you going to tackle this one first? How important is category selection and local ranking, and why is it so important?
I think that I think of categories as sort of being your ante at the poker table. If you don't put in a couple of chips, you don't even get to play a hand. So if you mess up your categories, if you pick the wrong ones, it's very unlikely that you're going to rank. But basically, categories just, at least in Google, as far as Google Places goes, they just exist. Your job is just not to mess them up. There's not really a lot of optimization that goes into them these days. I mean, it's funny. About probably 2 or 3 years ago, I did a blog post called like 13 best practices for picking out categories. And at the time, you could pick out sort of the ones that were on Google's menu, and you could pick out additional custom categories. And there were all these sort of do's and don'ts and all these ways you could get penalized if you picked out custom categories that Google didn't approve of. Now, you can only pick what's on the menu. There is no way to specify a custom category. And for any given business, there are usually maybe 2 or 3 relevant categories that you can pick. So your job is simply to find them and then pick them and move on. And in terms of which ones to pick, I'd say intuition is your best friend. I mean, if you're a dentist, you pick dentist. If you're an attorney, kind of a general practice attorney, you pick attorney. The tools I like to use are, of course, Mike Blumenthal's Google Places category list, where he just lists all the categories. And I would also use the InsideLocal category research tool, because they show you not only all the Google Places categories, but all the categories on the other sites like City Search, Yellow Pages, etc. And you're going to want to fill those out, with just as much care as you do the Google Places ones.
That's great. That's some great tips and tools there. Hopefully, Linda and Colin can share those with everyone. Casey, can you confirm what the latest advice from Google is on category selection, and how do you kind of translate that into the kind of legal market that you focus on?
Sure. So the new update is basically category should be the more specific category and not the overarching general category. So in the example that Phil used, for example, he said if you're a general practice attorney, maybe you were using attorneys. Now, according to the new updated guidelines, if you're a personal injury attorney, that's the category that they would want you to use. And they don't want you to hit all the categories. It's the least amount is possible now. So again, it's a brand new change. This is what they're saying. Are we seeing this reflected in the real world yet? And my answer is no. I haven't seen anybody make a lot of those changes, and I'm still seeing a lot of the, in some cases, overarching categories ranking in very competitive areas as the primary category. So this is what they're saying now. How are they going to enforce it, and how is it going to change things? I'm not sure yet, but that's kind of the new update right now.
Do you find with say in a firm of attorneys that's got each attorney's got a particular specialism, be it divorce law or kind of corporate law or whatever it may be, when you're kind of optimizing for the firm itself, do you pick one general category, or do you pick each of the specialisms they've got from a category point of view?
So typically, previously, we would actually fill out as many of those categories that would actually apply to that law firm. Okay, so we would take advantage of all of that now. It does seem that they're advising against that now, So again, are they going to enforce that? What's the real world ramifications of that? That'll be definitely interesting to see. But it used to be for us, the more the better.
Okay. And Susan, final question on this. Have you kind of used or seen any kind of optimization techniques to get clients ranking for additional categories that they're maybe not linked to? Are there any kind of techniques to kind of expand that selection or expand what kind of Google categorizes a business under?
And again, three quick things I just wanted to mention. If we look overall how important categories are in the whole local ranking algorithm, it's worth keeping in mind exactly how important this is. It's worth reverting back to the Moz data to say how important is it. So I know we're spending time on this, but I'd like to suggest to the listeners that we want to keep this in proportion. How important is the category to your rankings? If we're looking at going for additional categories, the advice that we would usually look at would be to revert back to your traditional SEO techniques. So this is where we're going to be looking at generating this kind of keyword-rich content that does extend. For example, you're talking about solicitors in the UK, and if they are going to be commercial law or if they're going to be employment law, some of the best techniques is to go back to your classic SEO, so that you would have either local rankings, but more importantly, organic rankings that are then also triggering for those kind of local phrases.
So you're using kind of on-site content as well as kind of backlink anchor text to kind of point Google towards the categories that you work within.
That's exactly right. So that if you are looking for these more specific type phrases, these more targeted, to use those techniques will often give you better visibility. Keep in mind, what we're looking for with local SEO, the real success of local SEO, is all about driving traffic. So it's great to talk about rankings, it's great to talk about visibility, but keep in mind we want these rankings in order to drive that traffic. So you might be using different techniques. You might be using video. For example, we might be using video local type techniques and trying to drive that kind of visibility as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point to call that out. So thanks, thank you, Susan. Let's go on to the next page. So this is probably quite a quick topic. I thought I'd mention it given a couple of questions that some of our customers raised to us. This is about landing page selection. So when you're optimizing your kind of Google Plus Local profile, you put your own link to it. Coming to you, Greg, do you typically link to the website homepage, or do you tend to link to a location landing page? And is it a one-size-fits-all, or does each scenario have a best option?
It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. What we tell our people is, if you're a single storefront, single location business, link to your homepage, because your homepage has the most authority. That's what's going to matter the most. But if you have multiple locations, you don't want to link it to your homepage. You want to go to a specific landing page that matches either, if you're talking locations in one city, then you've got one for each neighborhood or each location. If you're a big company that's got locations in multiple cities, you want to link to those location pages, because it's super important that the name, address, phone number information on the landing page matches what's on the GMB page. And if everything's linking to the home page, you're not going to throw 30, 40, 50, 1,000 addresses on your home page. So you've got to have those location pages for those signals to match up. And it's better for user experience too. I mean, you can't just look at it as, oh, is this going to get me to rank? It's what's going to be the best user experience. If you've got 50 locations and every single location lands on the home page, does that provide any value to your customers? No. You want to go to a landing page that's going to show them where it's located in their area so that it's a better user experience as well.
Okay, great. So actually, Craig, staying with you then, looking at the next question down. So, what's got more impact on local ranking? Page level authority or domain authority, and how do you kind of sort of play off the benefits there of if the domain authority of the homepage is huge versus a fairly lowly page level authority, but on the page you can put the NAP data which ties into GMB. Do you believe that the page level, even though the authority is less a domain, is better to have?
Oh, definitely. If you're going to have multiple locations, I don't know of any local SEO that would tell you to have a multiple location business link all of their GMB pages to their homepage, because it just doesn't work as well as linking to a page where you've got that unique NAP and that unique location information that you're just not going to be able to do on the homepage.
Okay, great. Any other panelists want to kind of weigh in on that? Anyone who's got a differing opinion to Greg, or sort of further insights?
Yeah, if I just might weigh in on that really quickly. I have sort of a slightly different experience from what Greg describes. I urge people to use the homepage whenever possible. because and I say this as somebody who used to kind of go at it from the other direction and say, no, you should use kind of a location, city-specific page whenever you can. That's what I used to tell people, but I've just found that the homepage tends to outrank. If you use the homepage as the landing page, you're just more likely to rank well. I don't totally know why that is. I think it has something to do with the fact that usually the homepage has all the link juice, and that is a factor for Google, especially after the pigeon update. But to Greg's point about it being sometimes a bad user experience, I would say if at all possible, you should maybe go ahead and link, use the homepage as the landing page for Google Places, even if you have like 10 locations, but then just have like a really clear, very prominent kind of location finder button or links to the individual location pages, right there on the homepage above the fold, so that people can easily get to whatever sort of location is closest to them. But I mean, purely so that's kind of how I could get around the issue of it maybe not being a good user experience. But purely in terms of rankings, I would say homepage all the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would like to chime in on that too. I agree with Phil on that. From the day that Pigeon hit, basically, that's the big shift that I saw. Is we're taking these organic signals, especially links, to just like a huge just to be a lot stronger factor. So since then, now it is you have to have that user experience, because obviously you want those conversions, like Susan, is saying. That's what we care about. But if you also want to rank, you need to make sure that you have the proper link equity you need to whatever page you're assigning there. So the home page is probably going to be the most powerful page in most websites. If you have a solid internal site structure, though, and there are links being built to those location pages, those can still perform very strongly. But that's very important. You do have to consider, what are the strongest pages on your site.
And again, I would kind of agree with each of the panelists in a different context, that I would recommend having a different location page for each site. So for firm solicitors, to have a Leicester page, to have a separate Derby location page, and so on. But I think the compromise here that seems to work exceptionally well would then to be doing an inbound linking campaign to that location page. And it might, for example, only take one killer link in order to get that to add some authority to that page, like Casey was saying. So probably in terms of that compromise, I think that would work very well, to have individual location pages and then combined with something to help boost the equity on that page.
Okay, that's great. We do have another webinar in the series that takes much more detail about kind of landing page and kind of on-site optimization, where we can start to tackle this topic in a lot of depth. But it's lovely to see differences of opinions. People seeing different things work. It does show that different scenarios work differently to each other. So thanks, guys, for that. This is obviously an advanced sort of webinar topic today, and we've talked a lot about the optimization of on the kind of GMB profile itself. I want to talk a bit about conversion. We spend a lot of time talking about how to get more ranking and visibility, but that conversely, we also need to talk about kind of conversion, because getting having that visibility is no good if no one clicks through to you. So let's talk a little about conversion for a minute. And Susan, you finished off there, so why don't you sort of start with this one? What in your view is the single most powerful factor in boosting views to clicks from Google Maps?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a cop-out on this one, Miles, because I still think some of the greatest evidence we have in terms of views to clicks on maps, unfortunately, is advertising. It would be to use the paid network. We've had excellent results if we're using different kinds of advertising in terms of location extensions and local inventory ads and click to call. If you're looking for if you're definitely interested in terms of click-through, and if this is what you're measuring and looking for, falling back to the paid model, I'm sorry, it's probably not the point of this seminar, but it seems to work exceptionally well. The other alternative, if you remember, once upon a time we could put descriptors into titles and looking at things like the kind of metadata surrounding the listing. And putting additional information, whether it be promise information or fulfillment information, that could also then drive through those view to clicks. But I would have to say, for a lot of them, if you're looking at it, you might want to be looking at the AdWords network.
Okay, that's great. Phil, do you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, I think you probably everybody who's listening knows exactly what I'm going to say. Reviews, specifically Google Plus reviews, because if you have if you have 7 businesses and kind of a local Google place is 7-pack, whoever has the most reviews and kind of the best sort of star average, 4.9, 5-star ratings on average, that person is generally going to get, that business is generally going to get the most clicks. And I think especially since Google removed descriptors, there's very little to differentiate one business from another in the search results. So it kind of comes down to reviews. And I think with the new layout that Google has been testing as a replacement for the local carousel, reviews are even more important than, if that actually rolls out more broadly, because right now it's just showing up for like restaurants and hotels and those sorts of industries. But if this new layout rolls out more broadly to other industries, reviews are going to be even more huge, because I don't know if everybody knows what I'm talking about, but basically Google is testing the layout where there are just 3 local results rather than 7, and there aren't even phone numbers or website links or specific street addresses listed in the 3-pack of local results. It's just like excerpts from your reviews, your average rating, and like a little map, or a photo off to the right. That's it. It's very stripped down, and the emphasis by far in this new layout that Google's testing is on reviews. So I think we're going to see reviews become even huger than they've been going forward.
That's great. Thanks, Phil. Greg, anything specific to the auto industry or things that you kind of do to try to drive more conversion?
I mean, it's going to follow right up with Phil, but it's definitely reviews. With auto specifically, it's a little bit different business model because people aren't buying all the time. Somebody's only going to buy a car every 4 or 5 years. And so when you come to make that big purchase, typically the car is going to be the most expensive purchase in your life other than your house. You're really going to look at the reviews and see, and notoriously car dealers are shysters, and they're going to try to, the general public thinks that car dealers are going to try to screw you over. So those reviews become really important right off the bat, because that's how you're going to choose if you're even going to look at their website at all. It's going to be based on the reviews that show up.
If we go sort of step down the user journey and we go to looking at a kind of specific kind of Google Plus local page, have you seen any kind of innovative or sort of smart techniques or things that move the needle in terms of conversion from actually not from in search results, but from actually people are looking at a kind of Google Plus local page that kind of really encourage people to click to call or to contact that business from that particular page? Greg, do you want to carry on? See if you've got
Yeah,
any
like with
insights
our
there.
auto dealers, we definitely see a difference when that page is completely filled out. So you have tons of businesses that they'll still gather reviews, and it still may be a verified page, but they don't put up a cover image, or they put up a really cruddy cover image, or they don't have a user image, or it's a cruddy user image. And we've found that whenever our dealers have a really attractive cover image and a nice user image, and they've got a fully filled out description, and they're replying to all of their reviews, whether they're positive or negative, and they're posting on the social aspect of Google Plus, that tends to get them more phone calls and more interest, because again, my big thing lately is telling dealers it's all about user experience. And people are going to shop around, and a lot of the statistics are saying that people look at an average of 10 websites for a car before they call somebody or fill out a lead form. So if they're shopping around, you've got to have the best experience to have them call you. So, a completely filled out attractive profile is going to get you more phone calls than something that's just kind of hanging out there with a couple reviews.
That's great. Casey, have you got any insights on that?
I definitely agree with Greg. Pictures are so key, and it's just so funny. Like in every industry I look at, I probably see a large percentage of them a day that don't have cover photos. Most businesses that are even ranking just aren't even taking advantage of that. And that real estate is there. It's right in their face. So if there's one spot that they're gonna see and get kind of that initial impression on once they get to your page, it's gonna be that. So the best uses that I've seen are people that actually edit those photos, not only take a really good photo, but also maybe add some text or some graphic, some sort of selling points that are really engaging that user a little bit more. And then when they're on that page, of course, too, filling out the description, like Greg said, the full profile, but also having links in there too. if they're relevant, to get the user from that page where you actually want them, if that is your website, or that action that you want them to take. So,
have you used Casey again? Have you used Business View for any of your customers?
yeah, I sure have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to actually kind of elaborate, kind of what Business View is for those who don't know, and how you've kind of seen it, how you use it and what impact you might have seen from it?
Sure. So, that's using the Trusted Photographer program, where basically they'll come in to your place of business, and you pay them, and they'll take, photos of the interior of your entire business. So when people are landing on that page, in my mind, there's no stronger way to really say, hey, I have a business. It is real. Somebody actually came here, connected these two. I'm not spamming Google. So I really like that they're doing that. I've seen a little bit of uptick after doing that, but I haven't seen major, at least, ranking impacts in a lot of cases, or at least inconsistently throughout the clients that we've tested it with. So do I think it's a great idea? Absolutely, and you should do it.
Okay, Susan, is it available to businesses in the UK right now?
Yes, it is, and I'm aware actually of a lot of UK businesses that are being spammed by partners that are available to do the photography. There's a lot of marketing going on, pushing businesses to do this. If the question is, are you seeing an uplift as a result? At this point, we are not. So with our clients, if they're doing it, I agree with Casey. It's a great idea. It makes a great user experience. But does it actually drive more inquiries? Does it actually improve your rankings? I'm not aware with the clients we're working with that they are experiencing that kind of benefit from including the Business View.
Okay, that's great.
Can I
I know.
add a couple points onto what these guys have said, just real quickly. Just about Business View, I mean, it's very hard to know. Kind of like Casey was saying, I have seen a little uptick from, for clients of mine who've used Business View, but it's very hard to say how much it moves the needle, right? Because a lot of the sorts of business owners who would invest in something like Business View are already more or less on the right track with their local SEO. So, who's to say exactly how much it helps? But really, it's kind of a no-brainer if you have a storefront business, because especially when you look at a Google Places page on a mobile device, when you're on that page, the Google Business View photo shoot is front and center. It's like even above the description. It's very prominent when you land on a Google Places page through mobile. And another reason to get a Business View photo shoot is that when somebody searches for your business by name, in other words, it's kind of a branded search. It shows up very prominently off to the right-hand side in kind of your knowledge panel. So it's just another way it's sort of another doorway into your business, and it's another click. It's potentially another quality signal that Google can look at and say, oh, people think this is a good search result, and they seem to click on it and take the next step. So I think Business View is a no-brainer.
Great. So hard to attribute directly from it, but everyone agrees that it's a great thing to use to kind of make yourself sort of stand out a little bit more. I'm going to try and speed up a little bit because we've got about sort of 20 minutes left. In fact, we're going to jump to our second poll now. So following on from conversion, the question I'm putting out to you guys is, how much of your time do you focus on conversion tactics as opposed to kind of ranking tactics? And I'm aware that obviously two things are often tied together, but how much time are you spending on tactics purely to do with conversion as opposed to ranking? Next question is around behavioral signals. Phil, you sort of finished off the last time. Maybe you could just talk a little about what behavioral signals are and why they're growing in significance.
Well, the common behavioral signals that I suspect Google looks at are: do people click on your Places page and or website after finding you in the local 7-pack? In other words, you're up against your business is one of 7 local businesses, and are you the one who gets clicked on, or do people click on the other businesses? And then once they go to your Places page, do they take the next step? Do they click through to your site? If they're viewing your page on a mobile device, do they click to call? Do they look up driving directions? I think those are all signals that Google may look at, and to me, they're sort of the great equalizer, because you can do everything else I've had clients, and I've seen other cases where they're doing everything right. The client is doing everything right. Links, citations, reviews, on page, you name it, but the rankings just aren't there. Meanwhile, somebody else has been stuck. The competitor, for instance, has been stuck at #1 for years, and nobody can seem to dislodge him. And I think that's because Google, if Google sees a result that everybody seems to click on, they're going to either keep that result where it is or even bump it up a little bit higher. So I think behavioral signals are a huge, huge gray area, and probably a bigger ranking factor than we all suspect.
Jumping on to Greg, can behavioral signals be easily manipulated and kind of used by SEOs? And there are a couple of sort of follow-on questions around some recent tests that have come out, studies into kind of manipulating these signals. Can you kind of enlighten our audience about this?
Well, that's what's kind of scary, is because if anyone figures out exactly how powerful they are, and you were smart about it, you probably could manipulate the heck out of it. But there was and actually Phil was just at our conference in Dallas, and he and Darren from Whitespark kind of did a tag team about just this very thing, about behavioral signals having an effect on how you're ranking locally, and if that's so, then what can you do about it? And Darren tried a live test there. It didn't work, but it was a smaller audience. But they did one at MozCon this last summer, and Rand had everybody pull out their phone and do a search. And it was for some Seattle wedding dress. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a Seattle wedding company. And then they came back at the end of the presentation, and it had jumped way up in the rankings just because there were 1,000 people searching for it locally and clicking to see directions. So obviously, it's definitely at play. How much so? I think that's what we're all trying to figure out right now. And if it does really matter, how easy is it to manipulate without, tripping it in the other direction and getting in trouble for trying to manipulate it?
Yeah, sure. So kind of going too far, you can imagine with anything that kind of Google will cotton on to the approaches being used to manipulate the results, and put in place kind of counterweights against that. I mean, are you guys thinking about doing any of these things? Are you doing any further tests, or are you kind of playing the longer game and not kind of getting involved in this sort of manipulation? Casey, what's your stance?
Yeah, so I like to test everything. So I have been testing it, and I was involved in a number of tests over the past year, and we've seen a lot of correlation there. And correlation is not causation, but regardless, it's also very easy to manipulate. Like people, even like Darren Shaw mentioned in his blog, or maybe it was a slide deck. You can go to MicroWorkers or Mechanical Turk or whatever you're doing. And I think people are actively doing that. And in some of the tests that we've seen, again, we're seeing similar results. So it's scary, and I think it definitely needs to be addressed in one way or another, hopefully by Google.
Okay, interesting. I'm just going to move on to the next question, which is activity on your kind of your Google My Business sort of dashboard. So, Susan, one for you. Do you see that kind of adding additional content, so posts, images, videos to your kind of GMB page? Does that help boost ranking, having all that additional content on there?
Well, certainly, having a complete listing will certainly help your rankings. And in our experience, by actually including additional information, and particularly we find video will have an impact on those rankings. Looking at it as well, further along those lines, the kind of the frequency of content as well, by adding information regularly. The other detail that we've noticed recently is if you're putting posts on, it doesn't have to be terribly frequently, but there does seem to be the magic number of 21 days. If a post is beyond 21 days old, for example, Google will no longer display it on the knowledge card, which are those results that appear on the right-hand side of the search results for branded searches. So I do think that the content on these, the content that you're putting into this posting does actually have a ranking influence, definitely.
Okay, that's great. Anyone else seeing witnessing any evidence of that happening?
Well, yeah, I just want to add to that. Maybe we haven't seen the evidence as far as helping rankings, but that's the wrong mindset in this case. This is marketing, right? We want to show up, we want to get more business and conversions. So people that aren't interacting with where their audiences are hanging out on Google Plus are missing that opportunity for a ton of traffic. So whether it affects rankings or not is really not important. You know, if you can get in front of your audience on there, you should be posting and sharing with them. You know, get more business.
Yeah, that's a great point to look beyond rankings. So it's by no means the kind of be all and end all. Phil, have you sort of seen anything to do with sort of frequency of your own activities, so your own participation as a business on your own sort of profile? You know, kind of editing, manipulating, adding images. Is there any kind of update frequency having any positive or negative impacts?
Not that I've noticed. I mean, I haven't noticed. The more I post on my own, the local visibility system, Google Places page, that brings a lot more traffic, certainly directly to the page. But in terms of rankings, not that I monitor my own rankings really closely, I haven't noticed anything. Now, I mean, it's kind of like what Casey was saying. I don't know that matters because, for one thing, even if posts and videos and so forth don't affect rankings, you should still probably do them, if at all possible. But another reason, and this may actually tie into rankings, is that if you're always putting up posts, always putting up videos, and sort of engaging with your own Google Plus page, that can drive maybe the behavioral signals that Google does care about. People are getting into your page. They're if they like what they see, they're going deeper into your site and kind of clicking around. So I would say at most there could be an indirect rankings benefit, but I can't say for certain, obviously.
Okay, but again, it kind of plays true to the fact that a fully optimized, fully enriched, very kind of active, updated profile, shows to potential customers that you've got a lot to say for yourself, and that's ultimately a positive things. So yeah, so looking beyond rankings as a kind of immediate indicator. Greg, final question on here. You obviously have followers and views, for your kind of Google Plus page. Do you see any impact in kind of ranking or performance, the more you have, and do you have a strategy for boosting these?
We haven't, with any of our clients, seen any sort of ranking impact from this. But again, kind of what we've been talking about lately, don't look at it from, does this help me ranking? Look at it from, does this help my marketing plan overall? And definitely, yes, if you've got an audience that's there, you want to get as many followers, and you want to get views, and you want to get clicks, and you want to get comments. And so the strategy that we use is, the quote that I've been saying lately is, it's social media, it's not buy crap from me media. So business owners got to realize that you're not there to just sell. You're there to interact. The people are following you because they're expecting something of value from you. So if you're providing valuable content that people identify with, you're going to keep those followers, and you're going to get more views, and that's going to help you, do more of what you're trying to do. And you can't just look at everything from is this going to get me to rank higher in Google perspective.
Sure. Okay, that's great. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to jump ahead. I'm actually going to skip that slide, and I'm going to do the last couple of slides. So, of course, on the hard yard. So, this one going to come out to you first, Casey. Imagine you've got a scenario where you're working with a kind of local business. You've covered off all the standard kind of local search bases, but things aren't getting them to the level that you're happy with. You're not quite sort of moving the needle. What tactics and approaches would you focus on to try and get the customer, to the ranking level, or to the visibility, or to the traffic level you want? Where would you spend your time improving their situation?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so with that, assuming that we've done everything to be the least imperfect all the way up there, and then we're still not making that impact, now I'm going to say, we need to focus on links. So from a tactical standpoint, maybe that means, and when I'm talking about links, I'm not only just talking about domain authority, but like we talked about earlier, that landing page authority, whatever page is connected to your Google My Business account. So if I have a landing page connected to that account, that's where I'm going to want the majority of these stronger links to come. So whether that's event sponsorships is still a huge one, and while you're at it, if you're sponsoring an event, if it's at your location, you can get your map in there as well. But really, it's links, links. So that's what I'm seeing right now, and that's definitely what we can do to move that needle.
Okay, great. Susan, what's your answer to that question?
I have three things that I would recommend. This is also true not only if it's not working well. This is also important, I think, for more competitive sectors. We've talked, I think, a bit about less competitive, but when we're in highly competitive, the three that I would mention: schema markup, of course. and then actually using this kind of information correctly. It was an event I was at with Google. It's interesting to note that even if the schema markup does not display, it is still being taken into consideration. So I think actually correctly adding this information is adding real value. Google, of course, is testing lots of things. There are lots of things happening at any one point, but that is one that we do know that they're keeping an eye on. Second thing I'd mention quickly would be, in terms of a local search tactic, would be to create local silos of pages. So rather than having a single landing page dedicated to a single location, say Nottingham or Leicester, to actually create a collection of pages that are talking about that are then addressing that local area. And then the third thing, again, which we've mentioned already today, would be reviews. And I think definitely driving reviews, and even techniques like looking at keywords that are within the reviews, again, could help to kind of move the lever that last little bit.
Okay, that's great. Phil, final comment on this one?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would not necessarily assume that a client has kind of, as you say, covered all the standard local search bases, because I'm just amazed at the number of people who come to me and say, oh, I've tried everything I can think of, why am I not ranking? And their citations are still a mess. They don't have a page for every specific service they offer. Their homepage is thin. They have no links, et cetera, et cetera. So my kind of standard operating procedure is double back and make sure that they have, in fact, taken care of all the basics. But, assuming we've done that, yeah, I would piggyback off what both Casey and Susan were saying about, Casey was talking about links. I would do exactly what he described. That's sort of the main ongoing thing that you have to pay attention to going forward. And what Susan was saying about reviews, in particularly keywords in reviews. I mean, there's not the only real good way to encourage keywords in reviews is to tell customers to go in depth. To go into a lot of detail when they write you a review, and not leave it at just one or two sentence review of your business. But so yeah, long term, I would say links and reviews.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much, guys. Excellent answers. Jumping on, we are. You know what? I think we're going to skip this third poll because we haven't got enough time. I don't want to suck up people's time too much, but we're going to go to the final question. Hidden gems. Greg, going to come to you first. What hidden gem or game changer in terms of driving additional performance, be it rankings or traffic through to site, do most people not use? What do you think is the thing that you have up your sleeve that you think makes you different or gives you that advantage?
Something that we found to be really successful for our clients when it comes to link building is kind of ignoring the traditional link building advice. Most link builders would tell you to just go after those high authority links. And for us, we've gotten a lot of really great success after going after low authority sites that are highly relevant in a local area. So, the little piddly church sites, it may be a really awful website, not even a great user experience, and not have a ton of links pointed to it, but it's highly relevant to the local area. So we've had a ton of success seeking out these lower authority sites instead of going after the really big ones, because if you can get several links, and typically it's easier to get those links as well, but you get these links from these local areas, and then if you package that in with what Susan was talking about, and you've got that local silo of pages, and you connect all of those links from those specific small areas to those silos, then that really helps boost you in the local rankings as far as what we found.
Okay, that's great. Casey, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I think Greg had a good point there. And one of the things that most people forget about too, again, just thinking about marketing and everything too, is actually being a real business, or RCS as Will Reynolds calls it, and doing real stuff. And so one of the things that is way underused is events. So if you can host a class or an event at your local business, you can then promote that to so many different authority websites, or just a few, like maybe the local newspapers that already have that authority. And guess what? You're getting your NAP published there. You're getting the link. You're building the community because people are coming to your physical brick and mortar store, and you're providing a service, likely for free, to educate people. So for me, that's something I love to see business owners in. And in any industry, you can really do that. We have specialty retail stores that'll teach a class on something pretty obscure, But there's an opportunity for everybody, and even if you can't do that, maybe it's a toy drive or Christmas is coming up. Have a toy drive at your place. Do the same thing, and I just think that's really underused.
Okay, great. Susan, a slightly different question to finish it off with you. Which piece of optimization work that you do you think improves local ranking the most? And it could be, whether you're working for a business that's got no optimization, up to one that's already kind of quite well optimized. Which single piece of work do you think moves the needle the most?
I would have to say it would be classic SEO, and it would be link building. It would be about building the domain authority of the site. Having highly, as Greg was saying, highly relevant links, local links, topic-specific links. That kind of content coming into the main website, I think probably does the most to improve local rankings.
Okay, great. Phil, any changes there?
No, I have nothing to add to what these guys said. I think they nailed it.
Okay, that's great. I'm just trying to get the final poll results up, but it's not quite going to plan. So what I think we'll do is, I think we're on the hour. I think we will just wrap things up. Apologies about not having the poll results to everyone, but they will be on the slide deck, and we'll also actually drop them into the video when we edit it. So you'll see those if you want to kind of follow up with that, and maybe we'll put the results in the email that we send out. So thank you guys very much for your time. This has been great. I've learned a lot, and I've loved the different approaches and the different views that you've all had, and you've come at most topics from a different angle. There's been lots of excellent insights and advice, and I think of the 3 webinars I've had so far, this is the one I probably will take the most away from it in terms of enhanced knowledge. So thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on with us today. I think a few of you are maybe participating in further webinars throughout the series. So looking forward to having you back on. Big thanks to Linda and Colin, who've no doubt been working tirelessly behind the scenes as they always do. So thank you very much to you guys, and obviously big thank you to Linda for all her help with the agenda this week. To all the attendees, we have some upcoming webinars. We've got one a week from today. We're looking at troubleshooting local ranking issues. We've got Mary Bowling, we've got Guy, and we've also got Dev Bezu with us. Then we have a break for a month, and we go into a state of local search in January with Mike Blumenthal, Mike Ramsey, and Adam Dorfman. And then another one at the end of Jan. This is next week's one. Please do sign up. We've got a few spaces left for that. It's troubleshooting local ranking issues. I'm sure it'll be an absolute cracker like it's been today. And that's it. We finished 3 minutes over time, which I think is a personal record for us. So well done, team. That was really great work. Went very smoothly. I hope everyone has really enjoyed it. Panelists, do you want to say a quick goodbye to the attendees?
Thanks for participating, everybody.
Virtual high five.
That's great, guys. Thank you very much again. Really do appreciate it. It's been great. So have a great day. Take care wherever you are, and hopefully see you next week. Okay, bye-bye now. Thank you.
Thanks.